Do the hustle. Do the hustle. Do the hustle. Do 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 do.
Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, guys. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sundays. Welcome all. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And I am ready to do the thing tonight. Want to give quick shout outs to people in the chat. Yes, you heard me singing Do the Hustle. I saw a commercial earlier today and it had the song Do the Hustle in it. And the song's kind of just been stuck in my head all day. It's like, do the hustle. Do the hustle. I don't know. We actually learned how to dance to that song or how to do the hustle when I was in gym class. I'll never forget that. They were like, today we're going to learn how to do the hustle. They also taught us how to do the achy breaky heart. Do you guys remember that song? The achy breaky, don't break my heart. They taught us how to do that dance too. What's going on? Mr. Fly, who's a Sabby member, says, hey, y'all, I hope you are all doing well. All right, Mr. Fly. Shout out to Soul, says, hello, Sabby. Happy Tuesday. Greetings, Neuropsych sends love. Shout out to Mastermind Hours, says, hello, fam. What's going on? Steven says, Mr. Fly, love poop. I don't know what that's about, but welcome. Shout out to Brandy, says, hello, everyone. Greetings, Hannah G, says, Sabby with a smile. Shout out to Angela, says, greetings, fellow humans. Angela's also a Sabby member. Shout out to Terry, says, hey, Sabby and chat. Greetings, Techno Estate, says, Marks America Gates again. That is an interesting term there. Shout out to Robin, says, Sabby Sabs is must be YouTube. Let's do this. Greetings, Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says, Doobie Doobie Door 2024. Greetings, Joe OWS, says, Chris Hedges and Cornel West gave a terrific debate against banksters at Occupy Wall Street back in 2011. Check it out on YouTube if you get a moment. It is epic. I will have to check that out. That's interesting. Shout out to Greg Bruce, says, hey, all. Greetings, Miguel, says, peace. Shout out to Mark Pugsley. Sabby, things have really picked up since the MW interview for you all, and for due dissidents, Crystal has been thoroughly vilified. I've seen some of the things on Twitter. I have seen some of them. Yikes. Shout out to Delthea. Hello, all you beautiful people. Delthea is also a Sabby member. Greetings, Robert says, hello, all. Are we going back to the disco era? I guess so. I'm just trying to get the song out of my head. Somebody help. Do the hustle. Greetings, Joss Flaw sends love. And I think that's a face with a cloud and a surf wave, something like that. Shout out to SFT, says, hey, ya fam, and Craninemies, what's up? Shout out to Jordan, says, hello. Greetings, Casey, sends solidarity and love. Shout out to Yipper, says, hello, viewing from Doobie Doo, Tutorshire, by whatever the name is, Massachusetts. Oh, speaking of Massachusetts, If you are here in the New England area, I hope you are bundled up this weekend. It is supposed to be brutally cold. I'm talking negative temps. So there's your forewarning. Bundle up. Shout out to Zach says, hey, Sabby. Greetings, Deneen says, hey, Sabby and chat. Shout out to Notori sends love. Greetings, Eric says, we love y'all. Oh, thanks so much, Eric. Shout out to Rick says, hey, y'all. What is up, Lolita sends a wave. I love that name, by the way, Lolita. Shout out to Peggy says, hi, everyone. All right. And shout out to Screens Arts Media. I had Police Walking on the Moon stuck in my head. Well, hopefully someone, I can get another song like stuck in my head. I just want to get the hustle out. I don't want I'm just like, do the hustle. Jonathan says, hey, Sabby, thanks for the email response. Love ya. Thanks so much. I'm trying to get better about answering emails. I just went through a whole bunch of them on Patreon and through my other email account. I know I'm not the best with responding in a timely manner. I have a lot of emails and a lot to do, but I am trying to get better about that. So hopefully I've been improving. All right, guys, I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. You guys, again, you're doing the damn thing. All right. Shout out to everyone who's a Sabby patron. If you are interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, Ultimate. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their name scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Doing the darn thing. I told you I got to be careful with the language now on YouTube. And I want to give a special shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Ramona E. Lawson. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate your support. Speaking of support, let me go ahead and pull up this thumbnail. We have some pretty interesting stories tonight. This was kind of all over the place. Like when I was picking stories, I was like, sometimes I try to find a theme and I was like, these really have no theme, but I think they're important to discuss. Tonight, we're going to talk about Richard Wolff and Chris Hedges' Duopoly. So interesting conversation there on Economic Update with Richard Wolff. I always think it's great when those two like interview each other. We're going to get into that because they did talk about some issues with the duopoly. Part of that has to deal with the Russia-Ukraine war. So we're going to talk about that. That's actually going to be the call-in discussion tonight about those issues. We're also going to discuss Bill Gates is in the hot seat. So Bill Gates was questioned recently in an interview. It doesn't look good for Bill because I do have some clips I want to play here when he was asked the same question a year ago, and his response seems to have changed. And this is in reference to Epstein, as you can imagine. And we're also going to take a look at what did Melinda Gates have to say about this Epstein relationship as well. So he's in the hot seat right now. People are kind of calling him out about this. I'm also going to discuss Donald Trump echoes peace. What is Donald Trump talking about? And his campaign has already started to kick off. And why should we be concerned, especially if you're on the left? And the Democratic Party, they should all be concerned by this because they're not advocating for the same thing. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about Woburn, Massachusetts teacher strike. This is huge because Massachusetts is not a safe haven for teachers to go on strike. It's actually illegal to go on strike if you're a teacher in Massachusetts. We're going to talk about that story, and I'm going to tell you how the mayor has responded in Woburn. He's a piece of work, boy, I tell you. He's something else. He does not look good right now. He does not look good, but we'll get into that as well. You know, again, always solidarity with the teachers, always solidarity with the teachers. But first, I do want to address something. Something funny happened. Some of you may have already seen this. Some of the activists from an organization which I have heavily supported, they have been a part of this platform. They've been on here multiple times. and they've been on RBN multiple times. They have decided to take it upon themselves and to try to smear me. Apparently, they have announced on Twitter that they are going to try to purge anyone who is advocating for the state by state strategy for single payer healthcare. I kid you not. I can't make this stuff up. It's all on Twitter. So they decided to make a video of me. I know exactly who made the video. I know who all of them are. I've blocked all of these people a couple months ago because I knew exactly how they were. Blocked 2 of them today. 2 others today. They decided to make this video about me as if this was some kind of reveal. You guys have seen me multiple times on this show talk about my background, where I came from, and where I am today. Multiple times. How many times have you seen me mention on this show that my father was a part of the military? How many times? How many times have you heard me mention on this show that I used to be an academic advisor, that I worked in higher ed for over 10 years, that I went to grad school, that I have a master's degree? How many times you heard me bring up these things? How many times have you heard me mention that I am middle class now, but I have been poor before? How many times? So the thing is, for me, is that I don't have a problem with people attacking me. It kind of comes with the territory of being in this space. If you're on YouTube, people are going to come after you. That's not the issue. What I do have a problem with, though, is when people go after my family. So these people have taken it upon themselves to go after my family members who have nothing to do with this space. They're not on YouTube. They're not a part of left independent media. They have regular jobs. They're not a part of this space at all. They went to such lengths to go through my Instagram, which is public, to go on LinkedIn, to search for my family members on LinkedIn, and to post all of their business in a YouTube video. Again, I have no problem with people crapping on me. But when you go to such lengths that you are willing to go after my in-laws and you are willing to go after my husband, that's when you know you have sank really, really low. I don't go after people's family members. I don't have kids, but if I did have kids, they would have gone after them too. I'm not the first one that they've done this to. They've done this to their own members before, publicly smearing them, calling them bad fathers. This is not a serious organization. And I want to say this very publicly. I have advocated for multiple strategies when it comes to single payer healthcare in this country. I have brought on Whole Washington, the Red Berets, and I brought on the organizers for Medicare for All on this show multiple times. I brought them on the show last year when other networks would not let them come on for them to promote their march. But because I have a disagreement, because I agree that we should do both, that if there's people trying to organize on the local level, they should be able to do that, along with people organizing on the national level. Because I have that disagreement with them, now all of a sudden they want to try to purge me because I'm not 100% only on their side. There are multiple actions that people are working on. There are some actions that people are working on here locally that I don't agree with. I just choose not to be a part of the action. I don't go after their family members because I'm not a vindictive bitch. But there are people who are willing to do that. And you know who some of these people are. And I'm honestly really livid about the fact that I even brought them on the show to begin with. That won't happen again. Won't happen again. So they are trying to smear me and say things about me like Sabby has a house. These people posted pictures of my wedding. They went that far. They posted my wedding photos as if I'd never posted wedding photos before. I posted them on Twitter. I posted them on Facebook. I posted them on Instagram. This is not a secret. I can't help the job that my family members have. Just like I couldn't help the fact that my dad was in the military. But I never tried to hide it from anybody. That is a low blow. I won't be supporting any of their actions. And my thing is this: if you are an activist and you care so deeply about Medicare for all, why didn't you take that same energy that you did to hunt down my family members? Why didn't you take that same energy and put it into your action? The fact that you spent all that time trying to do that about me. I am not rich. I'm not wealthy. I am middle class, if I've said on here multiple times before. But to make it seem like I am directly profiting from the military industrial complex, that's a reach. That's really a reach. And I got news for you. If you use Google, if you use any products made by Honeywell, including those little space heaters that some people have in their offices, guess what? That's also tied to the military industrial complex. Some of these same people who came after me, they have shows on YouTube. YouTube also supports the military industrial complex. So how far are we really going to take this, people? Are you going to get mad at the worker at the gas station for pumping gas when maybe that's the best job that he can get right now? You're going to get mad at them if you're a climate activist, or are you going to get mad at the powers that be? The problem is the focus is misdirected. You should be more upset about the fact that our U.S. economy depends so heavily on the military industrial complex. Some of the products, some of the technology, the electronics that you use is all tied to it. If you use a smartphone, you're supporting child labor. What are you going to do? Get rid of your phone? That's how far this goes, people. That's how far this goes. So you don't have to support other people's actions. If you don't support an activist group, the strategy that they're using, then just don't be a part of it. But I have watched these people, I've watched them on Twitter literally try to take people's lives apart because they are doing a different strategy. You're not serious about Medicare for all. You're not serious about trying to get anything done if you're spending all your time doing that. So for the people who may not seem to remember or try to say, I never said these things, I want to take you back to a time when I said these things, when I told you exactly about my background and where I was today. I'll use myself as an example, and I don't think I've told you guys this. I know what it's like to be on both sides, not the wealthy side. I grew up middle class, and then in 2008, went right into the housing crash, and I was poor. According to the numbers, I was just below the poverty line. But I wasn't poor enough that I could get government assistance. I was in that bracket. So I worked 2 jobs, and I was still poor with a college degree. Some of you know about this part of the story, that I couldn't find a job. I had a hard time finding a professional job that would pay more than $8 an hour. A lot of those companies that were hiring at that time, it was retail and restaurants. I lived in South Carolina at the time because that's where I went to college. So I did both. I was a waitress and I was a sales associate. I had 2 jobs, and I had a college degree, and I had student loans. And I still have student loans. Oh, and by the way, I still have student loans. I owe over $70,000 in student loans. Now, do you see why I was so passionate about canceling student loan debt? Just because I have a house, which my parents helped me to get, just because I have a house doesn't mean I don't have a lot of debt. And I have a lot of student loan debt. How dare you? I was poor, I would say, for about 5 years. For 5 years, I did that hustle. Working 2 jobs is not fun. I didn't have health insurance because I couldn't afford it. I know how much it costs to go to the doctor when you don't have health insurance. But remember, at the same time, I was in that little income bracket where I didn't make too little that I could get government assistance. So I still had to pay full price for groceries and everything else and my rent. 5 years. Am I poor now? No. The only reason I'm middle class now is because I'm married. Oh no, what was that? So you see, I always told you who I was. Those people just weren't paying attention, or they were paying attention, but they're just being asses. That video was last year. That was last year. I got people coming after me saying, oh, Sabby has a secret white husband. What? My last name is Salvati. It's Italian. Where do you think that came from? And I never hid that information. The first time I went on Rising, when we were talking about AOC making the comment about how she was going to be targeted because she was in an interracial relationship, what is one of the things that I said? I said, I'm in an interracial relationship. This was never a secret. Never. And it's really interesting to me that you have a group of white people who are supposed to be Medicare for all activists constantly targeting and attacking Black people. They did the same thing to one of their own members who was also Black, who they smeared publicly. So I will say this again. If you are serious about Medicare for all, then prove me wrong. Put your action towards that. Take all that time back that you spent going after my family members and put that energy into your Medicare for all marches. And you wonder why. You wonder why your turnout last year was so low. You spent an entire year smearing another healthcare activist group on Twitter, an entire year smearing these people who wanted to fight for healthcare in their state of Washington, instead of working on your initiative. And you wonder why people did not want to come out and support you. You can be passionate about something without smearing the people next to you. And this is exactly why we don't get anywhere on the left. There's too many people that are gatekeepers. They want to tell you how to organize. They want to tell you who you should organize with. They want to tell you, don't do it that way, do it this way. And nothing gets done. Nothing. The right is looking at you and they are laughing at you right now because, look, guess what? They are organizing on the ground. They're getting these school board positions. They're helping people in their community. They got it together when it comes to organizing. They're not doing this. But because you have ego and because everybody got to be 110% for you, you fail. And you will continue to fail. So I block them and I move on with my life. I ain't got time for it. I'm too old for this. I'm too old. Case in point, I can't believe I'm dealing with this with grown people. This is the kind of stuff you would experience in high school. So if you really care that much about Medicare for all, then maybe that's where you should put your energy. And don't worry about what I'm doing. Because I'm trying to get things going right here in Massachusetts, in my state. I have things I'm trying to work on in my community, in my state. I don't have time to sit up here and attack people on Twitter all day like you do. Moving on. Let's go to some of these comments and then we're going to go ahead and get into the news. I just wanted to address that because I know some of you have reached out to me about it. I don't have time for it, man. Say whatever you want about me, but you leave my family alone. Notori says that means you're doing your job, Sab, and it's reaching millions. Thank you so much for that, Notori. Betsy says, Sabby, we got your back. Thank you, Betsy. Joe says, when you become a target, that means you are effective and considered a threat. In my book, that's a badge of honor. Thank you for the super chat, Delthea. The green-eyed monster is ever working and the devil is always busy. Sabby, be wary and be careful. This is exactly why I don't look at my mentions on Twitter. This is why I don't talk to a lot of these people on Twitter. I don't meet a lot of these people in real life because a lot of these people are bad faith actors. They're all with you and they're okay with you until you disagree with them. Don't have time for it. Meteor Dreams, thank you so much for the super chat. Sabby is that Ricky Rance guy. He's horrible. I ain't gonna name any names on here, but those of you who are on Twitter, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not gonna stoop to their level. Soul says, Sabby, you are truth. Whatever people want to say about you shows what they are about. Thank you so much for that, Soul. Okay, now moving on, getting into the news. I was going to start with Maryland. I think I'm going to go to Bill. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Bill Gates had a recent interview. And of course, the question again about Jeffrey Epstein did come up. I did notice something. I noticed that his response this time around was different from the response that he had last year when he had the same question. And I want to also show you what Melinda said last year in reference to Jeffrey Epstein as well, because something is a little bit off here. Something is a little bit off. So let's take a look at this. Now, this is a clip from that interview that Bill Gates had. I'm just going to put this on full screen. Check this out.
Now, one of the issues that's dogged you is that of your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you regret the relationship that you maintained with him against Melinda's advice and wishes?
Oh, I've said that you're going way back in time. But yeah,
new audience.
I will say for the, over 100th time, yeah, I shouldn't have had dinners with him.
Epstein had a way of sexually compromising people. Is that what Melinda was warning you about?
No. I mean, I had dinner with him and that's all.
Remember that.
And that you regret the relationship, the acquaintance?
That I had dinner with him.
Mm. And the relationship between the foundation and Epstein, which
there never was any relationship of any kind.
Okay, let's hear it again because I'm going to show you something different.
One of the issues that's dogged you is that of your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you regret the relationship that you maintained with him against Melinda's advice and wishes?
Oh, I've said that you're going way back in time. But yeah,
new audience.
I will say for the, over 100th time, yeah, I shouldn't have had dinners with him.
Epstein had a way of sexually compromising people. Is that what Melinda was warning you about?
No. I mean, I had dinner with him and that's all.
He said he had dinner with him and that's all. We're going to prove that's not true in just a second.
And that you regret the relationship, the acquaintance?
That I had dinner with him.
Mm. And the relationship between the foundation and Epstein, which
there never was any relationship of any kind.
There never was any relationship of any kind. Is that true? Let's take a look back. I don't know. Bill, he might have forgotten what he said. I don't know. Let's take a step back at this interview that Bill Gates had. Now, this was right after him and his wife announced that they were having a divorce. I'm not going to get into all that. I don't really care about that. But I do want you to know that what you just heard there, it sounds a little bit different from what he said before. So let's go back. Let's go back in time. Here we go.
Gates also pressed on allegations that his relationship with convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein led to strains in his marriage.
Why did you continue to meet with him? When you met him, he was already a convicted sex offender. And do you regret that?
So notice they said relationship. Here we go. Hold on. Now, remember, he just told you in the recent interview that there was no relationship, that he had dinner with him.
I feel terrible about that.
Gates also pressed on allegations that his relationship with convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein led to strains in his marriage.
Relationship. But he just told you in the recent interview there was no relationship. Let's go on.
Why did you continue to meet with him? When you met him, he was already a convicted sex offender. And do you regret that?
He was also charged in 2008. For those of you who are not aware, the most recent charge where he was found, I don't know how to say this to be safe on YouTube, where he was found dead in his cell. He was convicted before that in 2008. And I think at that point he had to wear like an ankle bracelet or something like that. So the most recent conviction was not the first one. He had been charged before. And the reason why she's bringing that up is because Bill Gates' relationship started after he was already charged. So just keep that in mind.
I certainly made a huge mistake, not only meeting him in the first place, but I met with him a number of times. I had a goal of raising money for global health. I did.
Guys, this is really damning for Bill Gates. In the most recent interview that I just showed you, he said he had no relationship with him, and he said that he had dinner with him. Okay. But he just told you right here that he met with him several times, multiple times. Now, the woman in the recent interview, she did ask Bill Gates, well, what about the relationship between the foundations? He said there was no relationship. Is that true? Listen to what he said last year. Now, here we go about the relationship part.
First place, but I met with him a number of times. I had a goal of raising money for global health. I didn't realize that meeting with him almost downplayed the incredibly awful things he did. I learned more about that over time, but I'd add that to the list of big mistakes, including where Melinda's advice was sound, and I should have followed it sooner than I did.
A tumult.
So when it came to the foundations, there was a relationship. He reveals that in this interview. And in the most recent interview, he said there was no relationship in reference to the foundation. Which is it, Bill? Old interviews come back to bite people, man.
Tumultuous year for the philanthropist who for years has been sounding the alarm of an incoming pandemic. In 2015, releasing.
Okay, so that piece right there. So you heard the part there about the foundation. So there was a relationship, and there was also a relationship in reference to the foundation. So Bill Gates lied in that most recent interview. But now I want to show you, because they did interview Melinda Gates as well. And I want you to hear what she said. Again, this was last year, what she said about Jeffrey Epstein. And I want you to compare the two.
Or business or some kind of contact with Jeffrey Epstein, and that you were not, that was very upsetting to you. Did that play a role in the divorce at all in this process?
Yeah, as I said, it's not one thing, it was many things. But I did not like that he'd had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you made that clear to him?
I made that clear to him. I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time.
Did you?
Yes, because I wanted to see who this man was. And I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. He was abhorrent. He was evil personified. I had nightmares about it afterwards. So, my heart breaks for these young women, because that's how I felt. And here I'm an older woman. My God, I feel terrible for those young women. It's awful.
You felt?
Let's hear what she said again, you guys. This piece right here is very important. Now, you had nightmares about this man. Listen.
And you made that clear to him.
I made that clear to him. I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time.
Did you?
Yes, because I wanted to see who this man was. And I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. He was abhorrent. He was evil personified.
She said he was abhorrent and he was evil personified. After meeting him one time, and Bill continued to continue the relationship with him. Someone make this make sense to me. If your wife tells you, whoa, this guy is evil, he's giving me the creeps, and you only met him one time, why would you continue to have a relationship with that guy? She goes on to say she had nightmares. Listen to this.
I had nightmares about it afterwards. So, you know, my heart breaks for these young women because that's how I felt. And here I'm an older woman. My God, I feel terrible for those young women. It's awful.
You felt
She had nightmares, you guys.
that the moment you walked in. I didn't realize
He was awful.
that. Yeah. And you shared that with Bill, and he still continued to spend time with him?
Any of the questions remaining about what Bill's relationship there was, those are for Bill to answer.
Okay.
Does that sound suspicious to you guys? She was willing to go that far to tell all of that to the point that she had nightmares about this guy. But then when it comes to the point where she's asked about, well, did you tell Bill about that? And he still continued to meet with them. All of a sudden, now it's, you got to talk to Bill about that. What's happening here? What are they trying to hide? I can't. JB says that is deeply this is weird. How many of you in the chat, especially those of you who are married, how many of you in the chat, if you were to tell your husband, listen, your friend that I just met for the first time, this one time, yeah, he's evil and I've been having nightmares about this guy. How many of you would be okay with your husband still continuing that relationship with him? This is bad. There's more. Because we're going to get into this article here from the New York Times. Bill Gates met with Jeffrey Epstein many times, despite his past. So you see Bill trying to say he just had dinner. Let's go on. Go down to this part here. Few, though, compared in prestige and power to the world's second richest person, a brilliant and intensely private luminary, Bill Gates. And unlike many others, Mr. Gates started the relationship after Mr. Epstein was convicted of sex crimes. I just want to reiterate this. I want you guys to see this piece because this is what I was trying to tell you. This is not someone who knew Jeffrey Epstein before there was the conviction. This is someone who knew him after he was convicted in 2008, and he continued the relationship with him. Do you really believe that Bill Gates didn't know about the conviction? Let's go on. Mr. Gates, the Microsoft co-founder, whose 100 billion plus fortune has endowed the world's largest charitable organization, has done his best to minimize his connections to Mr. Epstein. I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him, he told the Wall Street Journal last month. You see how his story is continuing to change? He told the Wall Street Journal he didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him. In the interview I just played you, he said, yes, they did have a relationship and they also had a business relationship. And then in the most recent interview, which is the first clip that I showed you, he said they had dinner and there was no relationship. Which is it, Bill? I don't know. But something to me seems a little bit fishy. In fact, beginning in 2011, Mr. Gates met with Mr. Epstein on numerous occasions, including at least 3 times at Mr. Epstein's palatial Manhattan townhouse, and at least once staying late into the night, according to interviews with more than a dozen people familiar with the relationship. There's that word again. Ding, ding, ding. Employees of Mr. Gates' foundation also paid multiple visits to Mr. Epstein's mansion, and Mr. Epstein spoke with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and JP Morgan Chase about a proposed multi-billion-dollar charitable fund, an arrangement that had the potential to generate enormous fees for Mr. Epstein. So this is the second source that I'm showing you that confirms there was also a business relationship. What is Bill talking about? His lifestyle is very different and kind of intriguing, although it would not work for me, said Mr. Gates. He emailed colleagues in 2011 after his first get together with Mr. Epstein. Bridget Arnold, a spokeswoman for Mr. Gates, said he was referring only to the unique decor of the Epstein residence and Epstein's habit of spontaneously bringing acquaintances in to meet Mr. Gates. It was in no way meant to convey a sense of interest or approval, she said. Over and over, Mr. Epstein managed to cultivate close relationships with some of the world's most powerful men. He lured them with the whiff of money and the proximity to other powerful, famous, or wealthy people, so much that many looked past his reputation for sexual misconduct. And one of those people, ladies and gentlemen, as you just saw, was Bill Gates. This is terrible. Mr. Gates and the 51 billion Gates Foundation have championed the well-being of young girls. By the time Mr. Gates and Mr. Epstein first met, Mr. Epstein had served jail time for soliciting prostitution from a minor and was required to register as a sex offender. Ms. Arnold said that high-profile people had introduced Mr. Gates and Mr. Epstein and that they had met multiple times to discuss philanthropy. See, there's that multiple again. Then it goes on to say Bill Gates regrets ever meeting with Epstein and recognizes it was an error in judgment to do so. Gates recognizes that entertaining Epstein's idea related to philanthropy gave Epstein an undeserved platform that was at odds with Gates' personal values and the values of his foundation. Eric, can you put the link to this article in the chat? It's a lot longer article. But the point that I want to make here is in that most recent interview that you just saw of Bill Gates lied. So there's that. Listen, these old interviews come back. Like this, again, this was just a year ago. I remembered watching it, and I remember watching Melinda Gates' interview. So when I saw this one floating around on Twitter and he was trending and everything, I was like, I know Bill did not just sit up here and flat out lie when he gave an interview about this like a year ago, and he was saying the exact opposite. So what is Bill Gates not telling? Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Day in the Park. Sabby, nobody speaks to truth as well as you do. Thank you so much, Mr. Day in the Park. And I think, is that Mo? That's Mo from The Simpsons. Oh, Mo. Brother Daniel says Gates regrets being caught having a relationship with Epstein. Yeah. It's like you can't erase it now, you know. It's there. People do know about it. I'll take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Snork Y2K. Project Skyhook was funded by the company that did Wheaties. You don't know what is involved with what project. You can work at a company for years and not know the side projects of the company. This is true. This is very true. Thank you for the tip, Roger Meadows. Do these people actually think that Speaker McCarthy is going to pass Medicare for all? Have they forgotten Joe said that he will veto Medicare for all? Biden is getting ready to privatize LBJ's Medicare with the ACO REACH program. When people are losing, they will always resort to underhanded maneuvers. This proves we are actually winning the argument because people don't see anything happening with the federal government. Thank you so much for that, Roger. And thank you for this tip as well. In the immortal words of BKMC Miano, it's when they hate is when you know you are doing something. Thank you so much for that. Thanks so much. Yeah, I don't know what to say about Bill, but it does not look good. Does not look good. He's probably wishing he didn't do that interview now. He's probably looking back and like, I should have never done that interview. Ay, ay, ay. Thank you so much for the super chat, Terry. Sabby, hell with the haters. And it's so funny to me, man. These people think they have some kind of control over me. You will not control me. Period. Get out of here, man. Delthea says Bill Gates thinks money makes his butt not stink. So he does what he wants and thinks he will never have to answer to anyone. And don't forget, he's buying up all this farmland too. There was a woman, she came on a while back, Alice, I think her name was Alice. She told me, I have to go back and find that stream, but she said that Bill Gates was stealing water from her town. Mainstream media, especially the liberal outlets, they try to make it seem like Bill Gates is this charitable person and he's this great guy. There's tax write-offs that come along with charities. Just because you have a charity doesn't mean you're not stealing water from other people. And it also doesn't mean you weren't hanging out with shady people. Let's just keep it real. Okay. Speaking of some shadiness. So Donald Trump has officially started the campaign trail, and he has already made a promise that I think you guys need to hear if you have not heard it. And hopefully this will be some type of a signal to the Democratic Party. Because what he said on the campaign trail is something that I have tried to warn people about. That if the Democratic Party does not wake up and go back towards their true ideals, back when they were like that FDR Democratic Party, if they don't go back to being these anti-war party, if they don't go back to being pro-worker, that what was going to happen and what we've seen already start to happen is that some of the people on the right are going to support those issues. And then some of the people who are workers who may consider themselves to be Democrats are going to say, I'm sorry, I just watched you guys just screw over the rail workers and prevent them from getting sick days. And by the way, it's all for show. It's all theater. It's all theater. So you had some Republicans like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley support to give them the sick days. They voted in the opposite direction. And then you had Democrats vote not to support it. But they already knew it wasn't going to pass anyway. But it's the optics of it. It gives people the impression, hey, look, the Republican Party is pro-worker now. And that's the problem. And I warned people about this happening. And I said the same thing in reference to this conflict with Russia and Ukraine. I brought up the same thing, that you're supposed to have it where this is how it used to be. The liberals, or the old school liberals, they used to be anti-war. They were against this kind of stuff. They're cheering it on. And now you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking out against it. Now you also have Donald Trump speaking out against it. This is what I was trying to warn people about. I want you to listen to what he said.
Through weakness and incompetence.
Sorry, it played on its own. Listen to what he said on the campaign trail. This is recent. And remember, he is running.
Through weakness and incompetence, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of World War III. We're at the brink of World War III, just in case anybody doesn't know it. As president, I will bring back peace through strength. Peace through strength would have never happened. If I was president, there would not have been a war with Russia, in Ukraine, zero chance. And Lindsey would be happy with that. That's better than any alternative. Wouldn't have happened. And I will say this, even now, despite tremendous loss of lives and destruction of much of that country, I would have a peace deal negotiated within 24 hours. You could make a peace deal. You could make a deal for both right now, 24 hours. That deal could be done. That deal is waiting to be done, but there's nobody to do it. To protect Americans from the threat of hypersonic missiles and nuclear weapons, I will build state-of-the-art, next-generation missile defense shields.
Now, to be fair, most likely, Trump is just saying what he feels is more popular right now. And when someone is running for office, they're going to say the things that you want to hear, right? So I don't necessarily believe that Trump would do that either. But that's not the point. The point is that a lot of people heard that message and they do believe that. This is the type of message that you would expect to hear from someone from the Democratic Party. Aren't they supposed to be the ones to say, let's call for peace? No. You actually have two parties that are both pro-war and are both corporate. But the problem is right now, the Republican Party is giving the impression by these statements, especially what Donald Trump just said, that they're willing to get out of this conflict. They're willing to end it. They're willing to call for peace. Joe Biden is not doing that. Listen to it again. We'll chime in.
Through weakness and incompetence, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of World War III. We're at the brink of World War III.
That's true. People need to talk about this part again. Again, I do not like Donald Trump, but this is true. This is reality. We are closer and closer to a nuclear catastrophe. Listen, if they keep pressing the buttons enough, Putin has already told you he has nuclear weapons, no? If it gets worse and worse, who's to say that China won't join Russia? Then everything's screwed. Everyone is screwed. So if anything, there should be a push from Joe Biden for de-escalation. Joe Biden's not pushing for that. He's escalating it. He's sending tanks, which prompted Germany to send tanks, pushing us closer towards it. So he's right about that.
Just in case anybody doesn't know it, as president, I will bring back peace through strength. Peace through strength would have never happened. If I was president, there would not have been a war with Russia in Ukraine. Zero chance. And Lindsey would be happy with that. That's better than any alternative. Wouldn't have happened. And I will say this, even now, despite tremendous loss of lives and destruction of much of that country, I would have a peace deal negotiated within 24 hours. You could make a peace deal. You could make a deal for both right now, 24 hours. That deal could be done. That deal is waiting to be done, but there's nobody to do it.
You guys see what's happening here? There's more. I have an article about this as well, but do you see what's really starting to happen? This is exactly what I was afraid of. Exactly what I was afraid of. So Newsweek covered this as well. Trump says he could end Russia's war within 24 hours of negotiation. What's that, Hugo? That's pretty bold. I know. I don't see. The thing is, again, people say what they want people to hear when they're running for election. Like, he's just trying to win right now. And he knows that for the most part, a lot of people that are part of the Republican Party, they want this to end. They want to stop to it. And also the anti-war voices want to stop to it. So he's saying the things that he knows that people want to hear. I don't know if you should trust him either. I'm just saying, but still, the Democratic Party is not giving this message. Let's go on. Close that little window there. Former President Donald Trump says he would successfully negotiate an end to the Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours. Trump, who decades before becoming president was famously credited with authoring The Art of the Deal, which was ghostwritten, argued that his negotiation skills would easily end the conflict, in all caps, post to Truth Social on Thursday. So that's his site, Truth Social. Trump maintained that the war would never have happened if he had not been defeated by President Joe Biden in 2020. I want to ask you guys that question. Do you think that's true? Do you believe that if Trump would have won in 2020, that this war would have never happened? Type 1 for yes and 2 for no in the chat. I'm curious. Oh, I should have created a poll. It's too late now. I can't go in and create it now. Balls. While asserting that he could still bring a quick end to the conflict as president. So it goes on to say here, if I was president, the Russia-Ukraine war would have never happened. But even now, if president, I will be able to negotiate an end to this horrible and rapidly escalating war within 24 hours. Such a tragic waste of human life. In a Truth Social post earlier Thursday, Trump warned that Biden's administration planned to send 31 M1A1 Abram tanks, boy, that was a doozy, to Ukraine could lead to nukes from Russia. He claimed that ending the war, which is now in its 12th month, would be easy. This is the piece I think we all need to be stressing here. Again, I think that Joe Biden needs to stop pretending like this is not a possibility. Let's go on. First come the tanks, then come the nukes. Get this crazy war ended now. So easy to do. That's coming from Trump. Trump loyalist and Republican Congressman Troy Niels of Texas also touted the prospect of the former president easily solving the conflict earlier Thursday. Niels suggested during a Fox News interview that the war would end if Biden asked Trump to call Russian President Vladimir Putin. If we really want to end this war, Joe Biden, you need to call Donald Trump. Donald Trump will call Vladimir Putin and end this war. We must stop this war, and Donald Trump can do it. Although Trump and some of his allies have argued that the conflict would easily end under the former president's leadership, neither Ukraine or Russia appear willing to negotiate. But I think they have to be pushed to do so. I think this is the point here, is that Joe Biden needs to be pushing them to do so. By the way, I read earlier this morning, Zelensky's asking for more money again. He's asking for more money again. We just gave him money a couple days ago. Just gave him another over $2 billion, and he's already asking for more money. How long is this going to go? Let's go on. This week, Putin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters that negotiations between Russia and Ukraine were now impossible since there are no conditions for them to either de facto or de jure. But I do want to add here, remember, wasn't that what they were trying to do in the beginning? Weren't they trying to push for some type of negotiation? What happened to that? How long is this supposed to go on? Garland Nixon will be here later this week. I'm going to talk to him about this as well, because I want to get his take on this. But this is crazy. We can't just keep giving them money. Billions and billions of dollars going out the door. We're supposed to bleed ourselves dry. Let's go on. Doo-ba-doo-doo. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said during a Thursday interview with Sky News that he is not interested in negotiating with Putin, arguing that the Russian president also doesn't want negotiations because he doesn't want peace. Thursday was not the first time that Trump has offered to step in and quickly bring an unlikely end to the Russia-Ukraine war. Last year, the former president volunteered to lead negotiations and argued that Ukraine should have voluntarily ceded territory to Russia to secure peace. Trump has also claimed that U.S. foreign policy under Biden administration had taunted Putin, which he said was almost forcing the Russian president to order the invasion of Ukraine. On January 20th, 2021, Biden's inauguration day, the Washington Post reported that Trump had made a total of 30,573 false or misleading comments during his presidency. Newsweek has reached out to Trump's office for comment. Let me pull this out here. I just don't know where this is supposed to go from here. Like, I really don't. But all the money that just keeps going out the door, like this is just escalating it more and more and more. And we should be de-escalating. Sulamoon says 90 seconds to midnight. Thank you for the super chat, M. Smith. I don't want the Democrats to tell that lie. Amber point. Thank you for the super chat, Pan-Africanism. Love Trump, Dems escalate, that's what they do. Interesting. Why do you love Trump, Pan-Africanism? War Pigs says Lawrence Johnson. Thank you for the super chat, Pan-Africanism. What do you expect? They have nuclear bunkers. Never, ever be afraid, Sab. Trump's strategy is simple. Don't encourage Ukraine to join NATO. And thank you for the super chat as well. Yep, Trump was cleaning house in UN. Thank you for this super chat, Susan. After February 19th, Biden may see how many are not with the war. Will fear their future and slow it down. Doubt it, though. I wonder what he's going to say. The State of the Union address is coming up soon. I think it's next week. I think it is next week. The State of the Union address is coming up soon. I wonder what he's going to say in reference to this conflict. And thanks for the super chat as well, Pan-Africanism. Biden and Kamala encouraging Ukraine to join the UN is escalating the situation. Trump does not want Ukraine in the UN. They are totally corrupt. And thank you for this super chat as well. We aren't giving Ukraine anything. Well, we've given them weapons and we've given them healthcare. Some of those packages have included healthcare as well as clean drinking water, which we don't even have that for everybody here in the United States. Jackson, Mississippi would like a word, Joe Biden. Thanks for the super chat, M. Smith. In all fairness, we pushed Ukraine into this. Lots of different opinions in the chat, but always love a robust conversation. But we are moving on now to this story here with Richard Wolff and Chris Hedges. So speaking of Russia, Ukraine, that's one of the other things they're going to get into in this discussion, actually right off the bat. And you're going to hear how the duopoly, again, like I told you guys, it's not that much different. They want some of the same things on both sides. They're both pro-war. They're both corporate, right? So that's one of the things that they're going to mention here. They're going to talk about how it's really not that much difference in reference to the duopoly. And this is the topic for the call-in discussion tonight, because I want to get your takes on this as well. How you feel about the duopoly and what could we do to possibly change things in the future? Like, it really scares me that we're inching towards some type of a nuclear catastrophe here. It's a hot mess. But if you do not, I hit the right thing. Oh, that is the right thing. Yes, just want to do a quick like check really quick. I'm trying to pull a CJ, but this is not really meant to be. Trying to do a quick like check really quick. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. That helps me out with the algo. Thank you so much. And let's go ahead and get into this discussion here.
Appreciate. You're a seasoned journalist, to say the least. How do you assess the urgent issues that are addressed these days by the likes of the New York Times and the Washington Post? And by urgent issues, I really mean three things: the Ukraine war, the U.S.-China conflict, and the risks these days spoken of a nuclear war.
Well, the New York Times does what it has traditionally done, along with the Washington Post and all of the other mainstream media outlets, and that is serve as a cheerleader for the war industry. That's nothing new. Go back to Iraq, the invasion of Iraq. That is the role that they have always played and continue to play. The coverage out of the Ukraine is quite disturbing. I covered many conflicts. It's very clear that it's tightly controlled by the Ukrainians, so that reporters and camera people are taken out to visit a town that's been recaptured, or driven up for a couple hours to the front line and then driven back. It's the old system of minders, the traditional dog and pony shows that really shapes the message or allows the Ukrainians to completely dominate the message in terms of the war. I mean, we have pretty credible reports that there's been reprisals against by the Ukrainians against people who are suspected, accused of being Russian collaborators. I've spent enough time in any war zone to tell you that once the chaos envelops a landscape at war, both sides lie like they breathe, both sides commit atrocities. Sometimes those atrocities are dominated by one side or the other. That was certainly true in the war in Bosnia, but we're not really getting any serious coverage. And when there is an attempt at more nuanced coverage, such as CBS did when they filed an investigative piece that estimated that only 30% of the weapons being shipped into Ukraine. Remember, the United States has now provided $100 billion in aid to this proxy war. That's almost double the size of the budget of the State Department. It's, of course, utter insanity. But that there's no accountability for these weapons once they cross the border into Ukraine. And they are, I think, according to the CBS report, which they hastily had to take down, they are ending up in the hands of warlords, black marketeers, and the Azov battalion. Who knows? It's
in Africa. Some of them have ended up in Africa too. It's crazy, man.
It's not controlled. There's no audit. Even the Pentagon admits there's no oversight. In terms of Taiwan, the Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. This is a way, of course, to create tensions with China, and that's what keeps the budget, especially for the huge budget handed to the Navy. And it's all about creating enemies. I mean, I go back to '89. Gorbachev, I was in Eastern Europe. Gorbachev wanted to build a security and economic alliance with the United States and Europe. But if there was no enemy, if Russia was an enemy, they were going to make it Russia an enemy because there would be no excuse to expand NATO. Indeed, NATO, which was designed to prevent Soviet expansion into Eastern and Central Europe, should have been disbanded after the collapse of the Soviet Union and all of the revolutions, which I covered in Eastern Europe. So it's the war industry, unfortunately, drives policy. The two parties are completely captive to it. We just passed this gigantic military bill, $850 billion.
Which both parties approved. Let's pause here for just a second. Which both parties approved of that budget. The Pentagon failed their audit, but yet they're still allowed to send money. Let me make this make sense. They failed their audit, which basically means they can't account for where the money went or where all the money went. But they're still allowed to send more money to Ukraine. That doesn't make any sense. It's irresponsible. It really is. It's irresponsible. And honestly, it's quite embarrassing. And I think it's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting that we had a defense budget approved for over $800 billion. Over $800 billion. But they don't want to give people health care in this country. Anything that's supposed to go towards the people here, they don't want to do. But $800 billion for the defense budget? Billions and billions of dollars sent for Ukraine? But when it comes to the American people, nada. None. Terrible.
45 billion more than the Biden administration requested. And that, if you read traditional accounts of how empires self-destruct, hollow themselves out from the inside, it is unchecked, unregulated, rampant militarism. That's not what destroyed the Roman Empire. I mean, by the long list, the Ottomans and everyone else. So we are following that trajectory. And on the issue of war and on the issue of militarism, and of course we militarized internally our own society as we've destroyed it economically, there's no daylight between the Democrats and the Republicans, with this caveat: there's more opposition to that budget among the Republicans now than there is to the Democrats. AOC, to her credit, voted down this big $1.7 trillion spending bill that included that military budget that I mentioned. She voted against it, and Tlaib voted present. But you had far more opposition among the Republicans. Some of them are nutcases, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, etc. But yeah, the Democratic Party is fervently behind war and controlled by the war industry, and that is utterly disastrous because, of course, it's flirting with two nuclear powers. I mean, I covered wars. I can tell you don't control them once they start. They control you. And one mistake, when go back and read Barbara Tuchman, I mean, you can stumble into global suicidal conflicts very, very easily. I'm here to, I never thought I'd be in this position, hold up the words of Henry Kissinger, who has warned that there has to be negotiations quickly, that the whole idea of allowing Ukraine to recapture all of Ukrainian territory, including the eastern part of the Donbass, where you have ethnic Russians. Even the New York Times has said this is not a realistic reality or a realistic goal. Just to end, I mean, there's no, like the 20-year debacle in the Middle East, these people have no thought as to where this is going to lead. There's, as far as I can tell, no goal other than degrading Russian military forces and hopefully driving Putin out of office. Of course, that
and weakening Russia economically. Yep,
that didn't work too well in Syria, and Russia's a much bigger country. In fact, the economic sanctions have hurt Europe far more than they've hurt Russia. So yeah, it's just another debacle by the profiteers, the war profiteers, who unfortunately are driving policy, and it's a very dangerous policy to follow.
I agree. And yes, a lot of other Europeans are suffering because of this. I told you guys multiple times about the inflation in the UK, the fact that people there can't afford to pay for heat and are having to go to facilities called warm banks just so they can have some type of heat and then return back home to a cold apartment or a cold house. It's a problem across the board. We've seen people protesting in France. We've seen them protesting in the UK. It's just, it's gotten to the point where it's just too much. I think the inflation in the UK is at 10.4%. It's absolutely insane. So this idea that Biden had of putting sanctions on Russia, it doesn't just hurt Russia. It's actually hurting other European countries as well. That's the kicker.
All right, let me switch the focus a little bit. Donald Trump, it appears, is in a process of some sort of decline as a political force in the country. And there is a governor in Florida who seems to be aiming to replace him. How does all of this strike you?
Well, DeSantis is more dangerous because, unlike Trump, he's competent. Like Pompeo or Tom Cotton or these others. Trump, with or without Trump, it doesn't. We still live mired in this political divide, political morass, with these political distortions because of what the two parties have done to the economy and to the livelihood of working class men and women. I mean, that's what's driving this, largely the white working class that feels dethroned, displaced, which they have been. The incredible accumulation of wealth by this oligarchic elite, which is unlike anything we've seen. Going back, we'd have to go back to, I don't know, Rome or, pharaonic Egypt or something to see this kind of wealth. The Rockefellers had a few billion. Our billionaire class has 180 plus billion. And that's social inequality. You don't have to take even political science 101 to understand that social inequality creates these kinds of messianics, right-wing populists, neo-fascist, That's what is vomited up from a society that no longer functions. It's what I witnessed when I covered the war in Yugoslavia. You can go back and look at Weimar Germany. It's the same. So Trump, with or without Trump, the problem isn't going to go away until we address the social inequality, the political stagnation, and the fact that corporate power has seized every institution, including, of course, the media, and deformed them to serve their predatory interests on everybody else. So, and we've got inflation. The Biden administration has been unable to fulfill even its most tepid campaign promises: Build Back Better, the $15 minimum wage, the ability of care to be provided to the working class, et cetera, et cetera. So, in fact, in some ways, it's worse than Trump because the supplemental packages have all evaporated, including, of course, they're lifting the moratorium on foreclosures and bank repossession. So it's a very fraught and difficult time. 2024, with or without Trump, is still going to be very ugly.
That's the piece I really wanted to hit on. And we can talk, like I said, we'll talk about this on Call In tonight, but that's the piece I really want you to focus on. That 2024, with or without Donald Trump, it's still going to be really ugly. Because economically, we're still we're in 2023 now. 2024 is not far away. Economically, things are still really bad for a lot of people in this country because of the inflation. But even before the inflation, even before the pandemic, economically, people were still struggling in this country. And there were too many Americans living paycheck to paycheck. And you still had the issues of gentrification, which also still exists today or worse today. You still had a homeless issue, which is actually worse today. You still have issues with infrastructure, which is worse today. And you still have issues with public transportation and commuting and all these things that we've talked about before, the healthcare industry. It's all worse today. And I don't know about you, but I don't magically believe that all of these problems are going to be better by 2024. I don't think so. They don't move that fast. It kind of reminds me, it's a funny thing. It kind of reminds me when I was working at MIT and I used to have to take things down to the copy center because we didn't have copiers. It's this whole like eco-friendly thing. Anyway, I had to take things down to the copy center. And I remember like just saying like, okay, I'll come back in about an hour. And they were like, we don't move that fast. But no, it's true. It's not going to change that fast. So what I want you to really focus on is this. This is why I say we can't look towards one person to be a hero. I think we need to focus more of our efforts on something like what Shama Sawant's organization is doing. Workers Strike Back. We need to focus efforts on things like that. Maybe you can join Socialist Alternative as well if that's something you want to do, but you got to have something happening on the outside as well. But a lot of Americans, they're still sitting around looking for a hero. A lot of Americans still believe that there's that one person that just needs to run for president and everything is going to be better. I know because I was one of those people. Because I believed that Bernie Sanders was going to be that person. I believed that Bernie Sanders was going to be the one to make it better. And years prior to him, I believed that Obama really meant what he said when he said hope and change. Yes, we can. But then when they get there, they all end up being just like the predecessors before them. Because at the end of the day, it's corporate money that controls the parties. So instead of most of their interest being invested into the American people, most of their interest is invested in their donors and corporations. And then you have entities like BlackRock and Vanguard that own all the corporations. So you see what I'm saying? You really have to go to the tippity top. You have to climb all the way up that mountain and see who's really at the top. And when you climb up that mountain, you'll see it's not Elon Musk at the top. He's rich, but he ain't at the top. It's not Jeff Bezos that's at the top. Again, rich, but not at the top. There is even more concentrated wealth. So if you have companies like BlackRock and a Vanguard, and they are shareholders with the media, and they are shareholders with the banks and other companies, and they're shareholders with big pharma, You just putting in another person as the presidential nominee, that's just one piece of the puzzle. You haven't cracked the rest of the puzzle yet because you still waiting on that one piece. And that's not the piece that's going to solve the puzzle. So this is why I continue to tell you, you can focus on arguing with people over which candidate this, which candidate that. And I continue to bring candidates onto the show. But at the end of the day, I do want you to understand that's just one piece. There are other things that need to be done. This is why I keep saying you need to get a corporate money out of electoral politics. I don't know what happened to Let's End Citizens United. Why don't people talk about that anymore? This used to be a big thing. It's not just about calling out Amazon. It's not just about calling out Walmart and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Those are the easy targets, guys. It's not just about calling out CNN for lying to people or Fox News for lying to people. Again, those are the easy targets. You need to look at who owns those entities. Who owns CNN? Who owns Fox News? BlackRock. Who owns these banks that were bailed out during the housing crisis? And why were they bailed out? Again, companies like BlackRock and Vanguard, because they control so much. So until you, I don't know, take apart all of that, we're going to be playing the same game every election cycle. So what you can do right now is get involved with things that are helping people, the workers, helping the workers. So Workers Strike Back, what Shama Sawant announced, I think that's something that you should get involved with. You got to do something. You can't just hope that one person is going to change the game for you.
Do you think it'll include the white supremacy dimension of all of this?
Yeah, that's key, because what happened, this is what happened in Yugoslavia, the economic collapse of Yugoslavia. You strip people of their sense of place and dignity and work within the society, then they reach out often for a fictional identity. In the case of Yugoslavia, that was Serbian ethnic nationalism or Croatian. I mean, they resurrected the Ustasha and all the old symbols and everything else. In this case, it is the idealized golden age of white supremacy, neo-Confederacy, that has attracted the white working class and created this vast divide where how many people voted for Trump? Was it 74 million or something? I mean, it's a lot of people. And like Yugoslavia, once people fall into that fantasy world, which it really is, there's no communication, because with the other side, they're both grounded now in separate realities, or even in, I would argue, in non-reality based belief systems. The Democrats are guilty of this with Russiagate, as if Russia was responsible for electing Trump. You'd have to pluck your eyes out or something to believe that. So that it's a very precarious moment. It's very fragile. It's very dangerous, and we can't ignore the fact that the country is awash in weapons, in not just weapons, but automatic weapons. I grew up in Maine. My relatives are all hunters. You don't carry AR-15s into the woods. They're useless for shooting down a deer. The caliber of the bullet is too small. So unless I guess you want to pepper the deer with 10 or 15 bullets or something. So these are weapons. They're assault weapons, and that. The school shootings are what they're averaging more than one a day. A school or mass shootings are averaging more than. Well, this is a society that's deeply, deeply disturbed, and unfortunately, the Biden administration, other than funding, pumping these massive resources into Ukraine or the military, is not responding. There's this political stagnation is extremely dangerous, coupled with the fact that because we have an uncontrollable militarism romping around the globe, talking about defending Taiwan and bringing down Putin, it's a really, really dangerous time.
Well said. Well said. I just want to do a quick thing really quick. I want to show you, and I know you guys have, or some of you have seen this before. What happened to the teachers? All right, I have to go back to that. But some of you have seen this before, but I want to show you again, because when I talk about the spending, like I want you to see what it looks like on a graph. So let's do that bad boy. I want to show you what it looks like on a graph. We're going to talk about spending, U.S. military spending, defense budget from 1960 to 2023. Maybe I need to zoom out just a little bit. Just look at the graph, guys. Like, I don't really have to say too much here, right? I don't have to say too much. Here are the years. Here's 1960, okay? 47.35 billion. And as you can see, the years are at the bottom here. You can see as we go across, look at how it just goes up. Over 200 billion, 1990, over 325 billion. You'll see it go down a little bit too, right? Then we get over to 2000, right here, 320 billion. And then it creeps up here, 03. This is when we're going into, I think this is when I have to make this smaller. I'm sorry, guys. It's cutting things off. All right. 2003. All right. So it makes sense that it's going up here because we were at some type of conflict, right? Isn't this when we were going into Iraq, 2003? So it makes sense that it would increase at that point in time. But remember, we pulled out in 2011. So if we pulled out in 2011, why the hell going to 2013, why is it still at over $679 billion? This is absolutely ridiculous. And then it dips down again, still in the 600. Do you see the big change, you guys? And now here we are in 2023. And now they need to update this because it doesn't scroll all the way to 2023. But now it's actually over 800 billion. But do you see the increase over time? You go from 40 billion to, just look at this. Look at this, guys. Come on. That's right, Mike. That's a good one. Afghanistan. There you go. Do you see it? It just, what? More people. I want more people to call this out. I really do. I want more people. Show people this graph. Show people this graph. Where's the link? Oh, Eric, if you can put the link to this in the chat, just so people can look at this on their own. I think it's a good thing for people to have. And then I have one more story to cover. I don't think I got to the teacher strike, and I'll have to finish Maryland ballot initiatives on Thursday. The teacher strike. Let me pull that up really quick. I do just want to chime in with that really quick. Yeah, here we go. Let me just go over here and add this. I forgot this one, so I'm just going to add that. Yeah, so this has been happening. This started in Massachusetts. Again, for those who are not aware, it's illegal for teachers to go on strike in Massachusetts. But in Woburn, they said, whatever, we're doing it anyway. So this came out the other day. Woburn, Massachusetts. Teachers vote overwhelmingly for strike action as the state threatens retaliation with anti-strike law. This is what I've been trying to warn you guys about as well, that some way they're going to find a way to fight back against these strikes, right? They're going to create laws to make it illegal for you to do this anti-strike law. What's that, Betsy? Sabby, did you see the latest news on the strike? They're striking tomorrow too, and the judge is trying to force them back to work. Yes, I was going to bring that up as well. So let me go ahead. This is from World Socialist website. Teachers in Woburn, Massachusetts voted overwhelmingly for strike action on Friday, setting the stage for a strike Monday morning. So they were out yesterday. The approximately 550 teachers, paraprofessionals, and nurses, members of the Woburn Teacher Association, have been working without a contract since August. So this is the second strike action that I've shown you recently where the employees were working without a contract all this time. That's the problem. Hundreds of educators, students, parents, and other supporters rallied Saturday afternoon in the city's downtown ahead of the planned strike. The Woburn School Committee had filed a petition with the State Department of Labor Relations on January 24th to investigate an illegal strike. Remember what I told you, it's illegal for teachers to go on strike in Massachusetts. Shortly before the Saturday rally began, the school committee announced that the Commonwealth Employment Relations Board had issued a ruling Friday evening mandating the union to cease strike-related activities and resume negotiations. Under reactionary anti-democratic state law, strikes by public sector workers in Massachusetts are illegal. The Behavioral Education Association was fined and paid out $360,000 for a 4-day strike in October and last year by educators in that city. Negotiators for the WTA and the Woburn School Committee resumed talks at 10 a.m. Sunday morning and said that they would be negotiating throughout the day. The most recent agreement between the WTA and the Woburn School Committee was reached in January 2021 and included a paltry 1% pay increase for 1 year. In a statement, the WTA said it was asking for pay increases for education support professionals, smaller class sizes, and twice-a-week physical education classes for elementary school students. The union and the school committee said an agreement was reached between Woburn Public Schools and the WTA in October, but union members did not ratify the contract. The school committee and Woburn Mayor Scott Galvin, who is also a member of the committee, issued a statement on Friday saying that the planned strike for Monday was illegal, disruptive, and unnecessary. I'm sorry, but one of the things that they are fighting for is a pay increase, which it sounds like they're not being paid what they're supposed to be paid. Look, Massachusetts is expensive. And Woburn used to be a lot cheaper to live in, not anymore. Even Woburn's expensive now. This is what I was trying to warn people about with the gentrification. It just spreads. It spreads further and further out. So there's that. But he called it disruptive and unnecessary. If it was unnecessary, they wouldn't be doing it. Seriously? They claimed that a contract proposal made by the school committee on January 18th and rejected by educators is a fair and highly competitive offer that allows for reduced class sizes, additional collaborative professional development, and increased instructional time for students, as well as a generous wage increase. That is in addition to step increases that approximately 50% of educators received at the start of the 2022-2023 school year. Section 9A of the Massachusetts Public Employee Collective Bargaining Law Guide prohibits public employees and employee organizations from striking or inducing, encouraging, or condoning a work stoppage by public employees. All right, Massachusetts, my people in Massachusetts, we need to work on getting this changed. We need to work on getting this changed. I have to look and see who we need to contact about that, because that needs to go. The law states falsely, public employees have no constitutional right to strike. This isn't my state. Guys, we should be livid about this, especially those of you who live here. They have no right to strike, you guys. That's what they're saying. It adds that employees engaged in work to rule, in which they abstain in whole or in part from the performance of duties, can also be held in violation of the anti-strike legislation. And I want to give not a news flash, but a warning here. Don't be surprised if other states try to do anti-strike legislation as well. Terry said, I'm ready, Sabby. No, for real. Like, that needs to change. Like, I don't know how old that rule is, but that needs to go. Teacher unions in at least 2 other districts have been fined under the anti-strike legislation over the past year. A 4-day strike by teachers in Haverhill in October. The HEA was fined and recently paid over $110,000 to the state for violating a contempt of court order. Brookline teachers were fined $50,000 for a 1-day strike last May. This is where people are putting their resources to. Really? This is crazy. And I want to go to this part because they're going into Haverhill. So I don't want that to get lost with the Haverhill thing. This piece right here. Massachusetts is currently experiencing the second largest wave of pandemic since the beginning of the pandemic, but that Haverhill contract makes no mention of pandemic or teacher and classroom safety, another demand raised by teachers. Throughout the pandemic, the teachers' unions have played a key role in forcing students and educators back into the classroom under conditions where virtually all pandemic mitigation measures have been abandoned, promoting conditions of never-ending sickness, disability, and death for teachers, students, and their families. Teacher union leaders have agreed to sell out contracts in districts across the state over the past year. This includes Boston, Melrose, and Brookline. Despite the determination on the part of the teachers to fight for wage increases, to keep up with inflation and improvements to working conditions and teacher and student safety, the Massachusetts teachers unions have kept educators on the job without a contract for months or even years, and done everything in their power to avoid strike action. It was just a couple of days ago I told you about the strike, about the Boston Public Schools. They owed back pay to teachers that taught at Boston Public Schools. They said that it came to millions of dollars that they owed these teachers because they didn't make those changes for last year. So now they have to go back and issue retro pay for Boston public school teachers. And now they say the technology isn't working all of a sudden. Surprise, right? So across the board, the public education industry here right now, people are struggling. The teachers are really struggling. And all they're asking for is you to give them what is owed to them. If you got to give teachers back pay, you need to give them back pay. If you didn't give these teachers a new contract, you need to give them a new contract. There's just no excuses for this kind of behavior anymore. These teachers work really hard. I told you guys, to be a teacher in Boston, a lot of times you have to have a master's degree. That's what they prefer, and additional certifications. So they make you have to have all these requirements just to do the job. And then after that, it's like, then they just drop off. It has to be a two-way thing here. Like you can't expect the teachers to deliver, but then you don't deliver for the teachers. And that's what's been happening. And I have a video I want to show you of them striking here. The mayor of Woburn, by the way, not a nice dude for him to make that statement about these teachers. And you'll see him walking by here as the teachers are protesting. Woburn's mayor walks out of City Hall to a crowd of striking teachers. School has been canceled citywide Monday after no deal was reached between the teachers union and city. That also applied to today as well, guys, because they weren't there today either. But I'll show you who the mayor is. Here we go.
3, 4, Mayor Galvin, shut the door. 5, 6, 7, 8. We just want to negotiate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mayor Galvin, shut the door.
That's him right here. That's the mayor. He's smiling. This guy's not serious.
5, 6, 7, 8. We just want to negotiate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mayor Galvin, shut the door. 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4. Mayor Galvin, shut the door. 5.
That's right outside of City Hall. Pay these teachers, man. Pay these teachers. This is just, What not a nice guy. There's another one. I thought there was another one of him. Let me see. I thought there was another one where he said they didn't deserve it or something like that. Woburn. Woburn is another town outside of Boston. It's not too far from Boston. Woburn Mayor and school committee have begun negotiating contracts for both teachers and paraprofessionals in tandem. This was a big sticking point for the Teachers Association. Both sides report progress, but until a deal is made, teachers say they will continue to strike. I can't play that video because that's number 7. That's 7 News, and local news has copyright, so I can't play that. Is this one not? Okay, this one doesn't have copyright, so I can play this one. I wish I would have known about this ahead of time because I could have driven there.
5, 6, 7, 8. We want to negotiate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mayor Galvin, shut the door. 5, 6, 7, 8. We just want to negotiate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mayor Galvin, shut the door.
Yeah, so similar chant there. I want to show you where Woburn is so you know what I'm talking about, because some of you are probably like, what is a Woburn? Plus, a lot of the towns in Massachusetts have really weird names. So I'll show you what it looks like on a map. And then we're going to get ready for the call-in soon. Google Maps. I'll show you where this is located so you'll know going forward. Like, oh, now I know where Woburn, Massachusetts is, man. All right, let me go ahead and share this with you. Like I said, not far from Boston. I know people that live in Woburn, but they also like work in Boston. Like, that's not uncommon, actually. Why is this here? Go away. So this is Woburn's like right here. Come back. Okay. Right there. And if I were to move this around a little bit, let me zoom out so you can see. Yeah. So Woburn's right here. Right there. Right there. So it's right next to Winchester, Stoneham. There's Melrose. And then here's Boston right here. So it's not uncommon for people to live in Woburn, hop on 93 and take the 93 right into Boston for work. It's not as far as it looks. But that's where Woburn is located. And it used to be more of like a working class like neighborhood. But again, like I said, because of gentrification, Woburn is starting to get a bit pricey too, but that's where it's located. Next to Burlington, Lexington, Winchester, Stoneham, Wakefield, and Reading. And then Boston is down there. Boop. Yep, just a little bit of Massachusetts education for you. At Sabby, the Woburn Teacher Association is asking supporters to join them at 3:30 p.m. tomorrow on the Woburn Town Common. I'll have to check and see if I can. Wednesdays is I usually have plan on Wednesday, but I'll have to check and see if I can. I think I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're going to jump on for call in. So Eric, I'm ready whenever you are.
All right, here we are. All right, here we are on this interesting Tuesday night. Yes, let me put the call-in link in the chat again. I think we'll be posting that in a minute, but this is where we give Sabby a little break, and then we jump over to the call-in where we like to hear from you all on what you think of this fine mess we find ourselves in, as usual. You can hit the link when the call-in starts and see it on on your browser, or you can do the call-in app on your phone, and you can hear it and you can participate if you want on either device. What's that, Betsy? Call me Red. Eric the Red wearing red. You got it. All right, we got a lot of chats lined up. Let's see what we got in the queue here. From Candle's Boat, I have so much respect for Chris Hedges. He lost his job at the Times, coming out against the war. He doesn't compromise his principles or bow to power. Yeah, Hedges is a real one. And also said I loved his book Wages of Rebellion. And yeah, the dude writes some books, man. It's good stuff. Thanks for this super chat. Pan-Africanism. Trump is the common sense vote. Just accept it. All right. Thanks for the $2. Bill Bradley. The Pentagon hemorrhages money and are never held accountable. Yep, that's the system, the MIC, and you know they could make the money and deliver it right out, and just keep the whole grift running, and then of course then defense contractors, the MIC, funnel the money back to Congress. But we all know how that game works. Salty's Digital Drive saying, why is it called the defense budget when all it does is offense? That is a good question. Earlier when we were talking about Trump and DeSantis, from Bill Bradley, he said, DeSantis is much more dangerous than Trump. DeSantis can maneuver in D.C. a way Trump never could. And yeah, I think there's something to that. They used to talk about President WTT when everyone was getting all excited about Trump. And President WTT meant worse than Trump. So, of course, some people say that about Biden, and you can make a case there too as well. And thanks for the super chat. Pan-Africanism. Americans are looking at the options and picking the best one. Sab, you say you scared but refuse to vote for the proven peacemaker Donald Trump. Thanks for the super chat. We got Humanitarian Classicide wrote, BlackRock has a huge building on East 66 in North Manhattan. We should have a Chris Matthews themed party there. And thanks for this generous super chat, Aisha. Thank you for all you do, Sabby. Power to the people. Love to you and yours from North Andover, Massachusetts. And yeah, it's definitely something we wanted to mention. If you are in Massachusetts and you want to, we're working on some things here in Massachusetts and in the area. We're thinking about what ballot initiatives we could be trying to gather up support for and work on. Betsy, who you see in the chat and on call-in, is definitely working on that. And if you go into the Sabby Discord, there's a group in there called Ballot Initiatives, and there's Ballot Initiatives MA. You can definitely get involved there. And also, if you want to reach out, let me find that banner. Yeah, you can also, if you want to work on mass ballot initiatives, you can also send an email. Discord's not your thing. You can send an email to massballotinitiatives.gmail at this address here. And get in touch. Let's see what we can do. And if you want to get involved in the Discord, at the bottom of every Sabby video link, there's a link to the Discord. That if you want to hop in there and see what's happening. All right, let's see what we got here for comments. Left off on that one. All right, thanks for this super chat, Kimberly. Thanks for your good work, Team Sabby. Thank you for the super chat, Kimberly. Yeah, John H. Put this one in there. Sabby Sabs is an illegal strike called a wildcat strike. Yeah, I mean, as I understand it, the wildcat strike is generally a strike that is done without it's not organized by the union leadership. And it's just a group of workers just basically striking on their own. And the reason those can happen is that, as you saw from the story, when the union organizes a strike and it's against the laws in the state, they can get huge fines. They could even get worse potentially. And it's and so you can get a wildcat strike where it's basically just a group of people. From Juliet, I'm talking about this governor in Woburn saying, don't worry, not governor, there's mayor in Woburn saying, don't worry, there's a big paycheck for him for every charter school he opens. And definitely true that. You definitely have this whole issue of the money playing a big role in running things. And we had this tip on the old rock fins from Scott Johnson. Thanks for that $5 tip. Appreciate it. All right. Now for our, let me flip this around. There we go. Ooh, I'm not small. For our topic tonight, let me bring this up on this other screen here. We'll show a little Colin screen so that I know what I'm talking about. All right. In the Sabby Sabs Colin tonight, Chris Hedges and Richard Wolff discuss the duopoly, and you can see we got the link to that is the pin chat on the chat box here. Yeah, actually, Betsy just said about this pronunciation. Yeah, let me clear this off. Let me put this to this. We got a lot of stuff to fool around with on here sometimes. Where'd that one go? And what she said is it's Woburn. So if you're saying it like a newscaster, it's like, yeah, it's, here we go. It's Woburn, but if you're saying it like we do around here, it's Woburn. We're going up to Woburn. We're going up to Woburn, Sabby.
I know a lot of the towns in Massachusetts have weird names. Like, I'm gonna go through that one night. I'm gonna show you all the weird, at least I think they're weird, like Gloucester and Worcester. It's not spelled the way it's pronounced at all. These are like those old English names.
You can go out to Belchertown.
There's a Belchertown.
Or go up to Athol. Yeah, it's quite a place. You can talk about it in Colin. See you in there.
Right. All right, guys, we are heading over to Call-In. This is episode 76, Hedges and Wolff Duopoly. Chris Hedges and Professor Richard Wolff recently spoke about the problems with the duopoly. The question is, how do we break this duopoly, and is it even possible? So that's the conversation for tonight. Again, what we usually do over there in Call-In, for those of you who haven't joined before, people will still usually bring up stories that I covered tonight, like other stories that I covered, but also like anything else they wanted to chat about. That's your chance to kind of talk to me about other questions that you may have as well. So yeah, let's head on over to Call-In. The link is pinned to the top of the chat, so you should see that there now. And guys, you know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.